Hi, Tony Marriott again, and welcome to this video. I'm going to give another little tip from Gimp and manipulating images. This time we're going to look a little bit at animation and how we can simply kind of just make an animation from a couple of merged images. So as you see on the screen here, in fact I've got effectively three graphics. I have a background image and I have two foreground images. Both at the moment have transparency on the backgrounds. And in previous videos, we've gone through how to chop any pictures out and put the transparency on the back. So I'm not going to go through all that again now. Now this image here, particularly with the skull and cross umbrellas, as it were, is a composite one. I've created that from a separate bowler hat and a skull and umbrellas and some text and put that together and created this little unique graphic. Now, I've done this specifically for my Death of a Day Job product, so I wanted to try and have a little play with that. As I said, I'm not going to go deeply into how I created these. I've done these all before. They're relatively straightforward. We're going to look specifically at the animation. So what we need for the animation is, as I say, three graphics, a background and two foregrounds that they can switch between. So I'm going to take the initial background image, and I've simply got this, again, as I've shown you in previous videos, how to cut the background out and stretch it to fit or stretch it to whatever size you want. And that's exactly what I've done here. I've got my layer window up. Again, you can Control L if you can't see that, bring the layer window up. And I'm simply going to create two more layers, two new layers by clicking the new layer button here. And the first one I'm going to call main. And the second one I'm going to call intermediate. And those basically are my main foreground image and my intermediate foreground image. So I've got the pasted layer at the bottom there, that's fine. I'll just, for accuracy, I'll rename that and call it background or BG. Okay, so I've now got my background, now select my main. I'm going to go and pick my main graphic, and that's my biggest one here. And I'm simply going to edit that one and copy it, go back to my main one and edit and paste. And that's kind of central in there. I'm happy with that. So I can lock that in, simply click the anchor sign at the bottom there, and that's locked in. Okay, similarly, I'm going to go to my other foreground image, and we're going to edit and copy that one. Again, back to our main window. Select the intermediate layer, and again, edit and paste. What I want to do, make sure here, and if that's not quite level or where you want it to be, you can use the grab tool from the toolbar, and of course you can move this around, but in this case obviously I want it to move in place of the skull, so I'm going to put that image over there. Now you might notice I've cartoonized that image. It was a real face that I picked up. It's actually John Cleese, a snapshot from one of his Monty Python sketches, I believe. I hope he's not going to get too upset over that, but I've cartoonized him and added him in there. Okay, the next stop is really easy. I'll just move those out of the way so we can just see exactly what's going on. And just to make sure we lock that one in again, let's just click the little anchor at the bottom there, and that's locked the whole thing in. Okay, so we've now got our three layers. And the first thing I'll do is just tweak them a little bit. I'm going to use one of the filters. So first off, let me just select the skeleton picture, and I'm just going to, I can click the eyeballs here and turn the other ones off so that I'm sure I'm on here so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to go to filters, and this time we're going to use one of these light and shadow effects. I'm going to use a gradient flare. Okay, that's like a camera lens flare, and you can see it come up in here. And I'm going to put it, just click on his eye, his left eye there, and you'll see it will just happen, it will go onto the eye. Now just click OK, and we come back and we can see now we've got a kind of flare coming out of the skull's eye. Okay, that looks pretty cool. So let me just put the other images back on there again, and I need to do the same thing with John here. So let me just make sure that's highlighted, and then we can filters, light and shadow, gradient flare, and similarly let's just click over his left eyeball. Okay, so he's got one over there as well. It's okay that, and bam, there we are. Okay, looking good. So the next thing to do now is to actually create the animation. Again, we can use that one of the filters. So let's just go to filters, and down here you'll see one called animation. Now this is just a standard blend, which says create intermediate layer to blend 2 or more layers over a background as an animation. Now clearly we can put more layers in and make it smoother or make more activity going on. I'm just going to show you a very simple one for this demo. You can kind of expand this yourself and play. So let me just click blend. Now I'm going to set it to 5 intermediate frames and a blur radius of 5. That means it will just blur it slightly as it goes between them. I think it comes up with default of 3. If you've got more than 2 images, you probably want to have less in there, but you can kind of play with that as well and see how fast it goes and how smooth it runs. You can have it continuously looped, which is usually a good idea, and click OK, and it'll take a few seconds to kind of burn that one off for us. Okay, so we have now created a completely new image. It's in its own window, and we can have a look at it. We can go to filters, animation, and we'll find we've actually got a playback down here, and we can actually see what this looks like. So we now get it in a little play window. So let's just play that image, and as you can see, there we are. It merges one to the other and back and forth, and basically carries on ad infinitum. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to knock that on the head, and now I need to save it off, and this is important. I need to save it off as a GIF, because GIF is the file type that supports animation. So let's just go to File, Save As, and this time I'm going to save it off as, DODJ, deathofadayjob.gif. I simply click Save. I have actually redone this one, so it just says yes, I'll replace one that exists. And it says to me, right, GIF plugin can only handle layers as animation frames. So yep, that's what we want to do. Don't merge the layers. We want to save it as an animation. And similarly, do you want to convert it to grayscale or have it indexed? So we'll leave that as index, make sure we retain the color. And then we can export that. Again, it'll take a little while because it needs to build it. And then it'll come back with some additional options. And basically, I would leave everything as it was. The only thing I'm going to change here, I think this comes as default as 100. But because I've only got a couple of frames there, I'm going to try and slow it down. So I'm going to change that to, let's say, 150 milliseconds per frame. We'll say I think it defaults at 100. So the more frames you have, again, or the more images you have that you're merging, the lower that number can be. So we're going to look at that anyway and save that off. Okay, we're saved off. Let's go to our actual image and see what it looks like. And there you can see our animated GIF. Okay, I'll say that's how you can do it. Obviously you can use more than 2 images. You can use images that are just slightly different from each other, and that will give the impression of kind of cartoon motion. So you get somebody waving or waving a flag or something similar to that. The options are endless and bounded only by your imagination. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed that. I'll leave you with it and see you in the next video.